In this video, we are joined by a very special guest. Once again, Mr. Candid Camper. We are talking all about the Disney parks. We're going East Coast. We're going West Coast. We're talking Rogers the Musical. We're talking Walt Disney World. We're talking even parks I've never heard of before, like Eurofia or what. I don't know. I don't know. We're talking about all kinds of stuff today. So up next on OG55. Welcome aboard to another episode of OG55. I am joined by a fantastic panel today. I'm going to start off with Mr. Dr. Dre, VashSky, host of the Freshly Squeezed show here on the channel. Dr. Dre, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Well, it's been an insane kind of news cycle here. So if you want to hear us talk about it, either here or on Twitter, you can go ahead and do so right then there at VashSky. Just go ahead and type it in, and it should pop up for, as Latondra Newton would say, for all of the
robust
discussion. No, I don't know. I try to do the, make it a little bit more poignant. Okay. All right. Well, if you guys want to go ahead and see me, you can go and do so right here on the channel OG55. We have some amazing shows, including the one you're watching right now, hosted by the amazing OG55 himself, over to my left. Down below, we have Citrus George with his amazing Citrus Corner, talking about everything Walt Disney World news related. We're going to be dipping into it a little bit here, so that should be fun. And we have, of course, Story Geeks with Jay, hosted by the amazing Jay Shear, right? Talking about the stories that impact our lives. And, well, I'd be remiss if I didn't, also give a shout out to the Candid Camper here, joining us on this show, talking about his trip out to Walt Disney World recently and what his experiences are like, and maybe they interact with our news stories. We will see. But you can also find my show there as well, Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh, right from the Grove. Let's see.
Perfect. And down below, joining us once again, welcome back to the channel, Candid Camper. It's always a pleasure having you on, brother.
Thanks for having me. So you can find me on Twitter, The Candid Camper, and you can find me on YouTube.com, The Candid Camper also. I'm a fun person to talk to. We can have some arguments, but we'll make it work out in the end.
There you go. Perfect. Give him a subscribe on YouTube. Check him out on Twitter. Awesome guy. Thank you, Candid, for coming back on, sir. And over here, kitty corner to me, I got Mr. Citrus George, host of the Walt Disney World show here on the channel called Citrus Corner. My fellow Italiano on the panel today. Holy cannoli, George is back. If you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, George.
Absolutely. If you want that cannoli recipe, you can email me on Twitter at DisneyGeorge. You can find me part of the podcast called A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Pay attention, it's Joe time.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to start. I'm going to share your screen, Dr. Dre, and we're going to start off with an update from Bioreconstruct. This guy is beloved in our theme park community. For those of you that are not familiar with him, he does a lot of great aerial shots of a lot of Florida stuff. He comes out here to California, does aerial shots here in California. Really, really nice guy, phenomenal work. Dre, I'll go ahead and let you set the table as to what's going on here, and we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. Well, we highlighted his story on the show some weeks ago, and at that point, it was looking not too good for our buddy Bioreconstruct. Of course, he was experiencing some health issues, and I kind of wanted to update the viewers to that story just real fast and say that it looks like he is now doing better, although his chemo treatment now it continues. So, because he's so impactful to our entire community, and because he has contributed not only to our show, but to the shows of probably pretty much everybody else on YouTube and even Twitter, I wanted to go ahead and give him a shout out right here. So from the entire OG55 crew, Bioreconstruct, we are so thankful that you are doing much better, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And since I'm a K-pop guy now, I'll do the little heart fingers, right? There we go.
Heart fingers. There you go.
Heart fingers for Bioreconstruct. We love you, brother. So we're glad to hear that you're doing much better, sir. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
So the next topic, let's pivot.
That brings us to our next topic, which is Disneyland crowds returned to 90% of 2019 levels. This comes to us by Brady McDonald from the Orange County Register. It's very kind of interesting because we just recently had those TEA numbers that were published, and we broke those down a little bit right here, but we didn't necessarily make the connection that the percentages, when compared to 2019, as it compares to 2022, were so close, at least in terms of the parks in California and other places, but with some caveats that they don't necessarily pick up on in this show. But that's why you come to us, because we pick up on it. So here you go. Attendance at Disneyland, Universal Studios Hollywood, and Southern California theme parks has not quite reached pre-pandemic levels, despite crowds and lines that might make visitors think otherwise. Southern California theme park attendance in 2022 nearly bounced back to pre-pandemic 2019 crowd levels, according to a new report from the Themed Entertainment Association and ACOM. Southern California attendance in 2022, 90% versus 2019, was on par with U.S. theme parks, 88% versus 2019, and well ahead of parks worldwide, 79% versus 2019, for various reasons compared to their pre-pandemic levels, according to the TEA and ACOM report. And it details that Disneyland, 90% of what it was in 2019, now in 2022 with 16.9 million versus 18.7 million back in 2019. So pretty good, all things considered, right?
And it doesn't surprise me.
No, it's been busy the last few times that I've been. It's been very, very busy. And it's interesting, the difference, though, the stark difference between what's going on in Anaheim with the crowds and how busy it's been. 90% of 2019, that's pretty good. But then you go to Florida. George, you just got back from Florida like a week ago. And you were saying like it was dead.
It's day and night. Like there were times during the day at all four parks that you could literally have the whole entire walking path to yourself.
Right.
That's crazy.
And I wanted to bring that up too, because for as good as the Disney parks and Southern California parks have been, and that is to say Disneyland with 90%, DCA 91%, Universal Studios Hollywood at 92%, and Knott's Berry Farm with 92%, not so well for the parks in Florida when it comes to Disney parks specifically. Magic Kingdom had 17.1 million visitors in 2022, but it had 20.9 in 2019, so that's an 81% rebound right there. Disney's Animal Kingdom, with the lowest, it had about 9 million visitors in 2022, but that was 13.8 million visitors in 2019. That's 65%. Epcot at 10 million visitors this year, or 2022, versus 12.4 visitors in 2019. That's 80.6%. Disney Hollywood Studios was the only one that had a Southern California-like rebound with 10.9 million visitors in 2022 versus 2019 had 11.4 visitors, and that's a 95% rebound.
Which I am very curious to see what the 2023 is going to be, because as of right now, Animal Kingdom was more crowded than Hollywood Studios.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be really interesting to watch, George, as, you know, people kind of spread out and go to maybe Epcot because of Cosmic Rewind, or maybe they go to, I don't know, Magic Kingdom for Tron. But we know that visitation is down kind of overall. So how does that map look when compared to all of that? That's going to be really interesting to watch there. But here's the interesting thing. So for as rebound less, let's say, as the Florida Disney parks were, if you compare them against the Universal parks in the same market right there, they've been having pretty good success. So in 2019, they did 10.9 million visitors versus 2022, 10.7 million visitors. This is for Universal Studios Florida, and that's a 98% rebound. And this is really interesting. IOA had 10.3 million visitors in 2019 and 11 million visitors in 2022. So they are up actually 6.8% when compared against 2019. So they're actually up, and the whole parks division at least stateside, is doing very, very well. It's really interesting how Disney hasn't quite rebounded the way that you would think.
And that's the problem with the Walt Disney World parks is I feel that even though there's enough for me to do, because I'm a Disney buff, I'll find something to do. I love to just sit around, sightsee, people watch. I like to go on attractions. I like to get, watch some of the shows. But when you have that typical tourist family, that family of four coming from Connecticut or Colorado or what have you, they don't want to sit around and do nothing. They are paying a premium price. They want to ride rides. They want to have a overall full day experience. And unfortunately, you can't get that with the Florida parks for Walt Disney World because there's only so much you could do out of each park. Because even to me, as being now, again, an annual pass holder for Florida, I find myself jumping from park to park because it was, okay, I wanted to, as you had mentioned, Vash, that, go to Cosmic Rewind at Epcot. Okay, then I jumped back over to Magic Kingdom for Tron. And then I went to Hollywood Studios for Tower of Terror and Rockin'. It was like I was jumping from park to park. Now, of course, that was just because I was by myself, and that's just how I handle like the Disney parks. But again, when you have a family of four and you could primarily have young children, you can't necessarily have that kind of opportunity, especially for the price range from just a standard base ticket to the park hopper option.
I'm very interested as to what is going on here because we could speculate, okay, it's the reservation system, but Disneyland Resort has the same reservation system, give or take, and we're seeing pretty robust numbers.
Yeah.
What is it? Because even in Florida, it's even like pre-reservation system. It's always been more like complicated to visit Walt Disney World than Disneyland. So it's always kind of been the case. I wonder what is going on over there at Walt Disney World specifically that's causing people to turn away. Is it maybe just Universal is stepping up their game and they're pulling people away? Is there something else going on here? Because, we could also say tourism is drying up because of the economy, but then they're still going to Universal, which, look, arguably Universal Orlando is a little more locals driven, I think, than Walt Disney World, to be honest, with the Hollywood Horror Nights and all that stuff. They do cater more to locals, I think, than maybe Disney World. But even that, I don't know, man. I don't know what to make of it, to be quite honest with you. Go ahead, George.
I don't think the reservation system is the problem anymore because you could literally jump on the website right now and you can book a theme park reservation for any one of the four parks and you're good to go. You can make dining reservations the day of.
Wow.
and there's still availability. So So the reservation system and the dining reservations are not the issue. I really think on top of like with the economy, recession kicking in and everything. But as you said, OG, the numbers still show that people are going to Universal. And I think it's because when you tie Islands of Adventure in particular, Islands of Adventure to the number of attractions that is in that park to Disneyland Park, you're kind of having the same amount of attractions in that in those parks.
What do you think, Candid? What do you think is going on here with this?
Just coming back from Florida also, I don't know. I just seen the same thing of George is saying. Like, and I have the family of four. We got there, we went pretty much to one park because we had to be there until 2:00, and then after 2:00 hit, we're sitting there like we already did everything, and we just skipped over to the other park, and that's what kids. And, it was really easy. And I've never had it this easy at any park, anytime my whole entire Disneyland or Disney World career. So I definitely seen it. And I remember texting you guys and letting you know, hey, like, look at this picture. There's no one here.
Mm-hmm.
I had a picture of Everest with 0 people in my shot, and it was midday.
That's crazy. And when did you go, Candid? What time of the year was this?
This was in May.
Okay, so not too long ago.
And then I went the beginning of June.
Wow, man.
Yeah. I think 2022. I think the economic factors started to kind of take hold a little bit there, which might have contributed to maybe that loss, at least compared to the 2022 numbers as juxtaposed against everybody else's numbers. Right, might have contributed to a little bit of a slowdown, at least for Magic Kingdom, Disney Animal Kingdom, Epcot. But maybe it is kind of a combination of, maybe
'Cause even-
the perception of nickel and diming, maybe the lack of value, right? Because now we hear about Disney bringing back a lot of those value items, right? Like the dining plan and other things. Go ahead, George.
And as to piggyback off of that, even just like with the summer deals for these standard based tickets and percentages off hotel rates. Me going to Disney World literally on the fly, that was like a spontaneous in the moment type of thing because my flights got rerouted. That was not planned at all. And I was able to book literally a week's worth of a vacation at Walt Disney World at a hotel literally the night I landed in Orlando, not planned at all. And when I got there, the cast member told me, he said, during the Memorial Day weekend, we were fully packed. We were busy. All rooms were completely occupied. The second Memorial Day weekend open, when occupancy opened up 80%.
It's weird. It's even the value thing is weird to me because it's like Disneyland's nickel and diming just as bad. It's just weird. I don't get it.
We know that Disneyland is nickel and diming, but do you think the value statement's a little bit different when you have so many locals who can go a little bit more freely rather than just Walt Disney World? I mean,
yeah.
That might also contribute to why Universal Studios Orlando is doing a little bit better in comparison to Walt Disney World with those same numbers, right? It might be the perception of value, a more local-driven market for those specific parks in conjunction with maybe complication. Maybe complication is a factor here too.
And
I just can buy my tickets and walk in versus Walt Disney World. I got to go through some extra hoops. Go ahead.
And also with Universal, I'm sorry, Disney, I love you. You're still my number one, but I'm just going to call it out like it is. Universal also has attractions that work fully from beginning to end, and which we are going to talk about a particular attraction like that later on in the show where, people still go on it. And actually, Candid said it, Everest, no one really there. So is someone going to pay a premium price ticket to then go on an attraction that you're really not getting the full immersive experience?
Something is contributing to this, and maybe it is the perception of quality, like you said, George. Maybe it's the perception of value. We can see Disney already responding to this with the myriad of announcements that they've made for 2024. Also with their operational changes that they've made to the product, going from 2022 into 2023. It's going to be fascinating to see how Disney kind of rackles with this. But my main concern for Disney is not necessarily attendance; it's those per caps, and we know those are down. So,
but I think
punch
honestly,
right there, that's a Six Flags.
It really is. But I think if Disney, and again, I know that they're kind of tied down right now. But as I said, if here I go again. But if Damara would get off his ass and stop worrying about his hair products and his selfies that do something with the parks, that I personally feel that if they were to greenlight that what if that we got at the expo, primarily at Magic Kingdom, I swear if we had Villains and Kanto and Coco and expanded out to Magic Kingdom, I guarantee you they would be seeing what Disneyland is seeing right now.
Well, if you guys had a Villains Land, you would be destroying Universal right now. That land would be. I don't know why they're sleeping on that. Just build that thing already. That's been a thing that fans have wanted for like literally decades. I've been in the Disney community since AOL dial-up. I'm not even messing around. I'm that old. Okay, AOL dial-up, and fans were talking about a Villains Land or a Villains Park back then in like 98, 99.
And I want to literally say to Damaro and even Iger and Chris Beatty, and because it was part of the Imagineer, Chris Beatty, for all of you who don't, know, but it was his concept art. It's like, were you not in the same room at the expo when people literally went nuts when they mentioned the villains? They were in awe with Coco and Encanto, but I swear it was almost like a standing ovation.
Right.
For the villains, and it's such an easy grab. I don't know why, as you mentioned, OG. I don't know why it's taking this long.
So what you're saying is that people like bad guys?
You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say that's the bad guy.
Is that what you're saying, George?
Yeah,
All right.
that's exactly.
It's gonna take, I think, a lot to get people going back. We have seen that even attractions by themselves don't necessarily amount to the big attendance uplift that we would normally expect.
Right.
We saw that with Tron. We're seeing that with Cosmic Rewind. It's like, okay, we need something a little bit more. Like you said, George, I mean, significant investment, I think, would do that. But in conjunction with that, I would restore some of these kind of, these things that create a value proposition in the minds of guests, right? Dining plan is a good step, but come on, Magical Express.
Magical Express. I mean, that is just total ridiculous. The fact that they even dropped that off in the first place.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's Magical Express. Maybe that's what it is.
I have no doubt that it's contributed to that. I mean, I was asking around, like, is there any benefit to staying on property anymore without Magical Express? That's a big deal. It's just been taken off the table. Now, there are some things that add to the valuation, no question right there. But with Magical Express off the table, it's just a different paradigm. So I think with that, maybe do some Magic Band giveaways, right? When you actually check in like they did before. Some of these things have got to change because you can't keep cutting by 35%, 40% for guests looking to stay at these places. You're cutting your revenue stream.
Sometimes it's the smallest thing that counts. It's the little subtleties that just can add on to your vacation to say, wow, I really do matter. Yeah, I'm paying a premium price, but Disney is giving me something back in return. What do you think, Camper? What do you think as far as like with Magical Express, with Disney kind of expanding the parks? If would we see a significant change? Like, what's your take?
So this was my second trip to Disney World. The first trip was a couple years back, and I dug deep into it, did all my research, and made a perfect trip. Like, we got on the plane, we got off the plane, my bags were waiting, we got on that bus, we got shuttled to the hotel. I had my Magic Bands already shipped to me. I had my app, and I had 60 days to plan all my food out. So I had all that going for me, and all I had to do was basically sleep, wake up on time, get on the bus that they provided for me again, make it to the park, and have the best day ever. This time I didn't stay on property, so I did have a shuttle that helped me out. I will say, not having kids prior, but like the first time I went, and having that bus, I think there still would have been really good to have. I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna say this, but now if I didn't stay at this new place I stayed at, and they didn't provide a shuttle, and I would have to call an Uber with 2 kids that need car seats, I'm kind of screwed in that situation. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be one of the biggest things next time for me. I'm not going to stay on the Disney property because I need someone that's going to give me a shuttle, and I'm not going to pay someone $80 or however much it costs to ride on the minibus.
I actually am very glad that you mentioned that, because that's something that I completely forgot to mention when I was just down there a couple weeks ago. Is I looked around at the majority of the people that were in the parks, and majority of them, now again, I know this is going to probably cause a whole stir up of a conversation about people saying, adults living the Disney life and, adulting with, at Disney. I'm sorry, I'm an adult. I'll still go. So don't even throw me that BS, people.
Disney adults, huh? Disney adults.
Yeah. But majority were adults. I rarely saw families with young kids, and actually from you mentioning that, Camper, that would make sense by dropping off Magical Express and people that's possibly not staying on property, or even just people that are down there, just say, hey, you know what, maybe we could visit Disney World for a couple days or go for the day, what have you. To not have that luxury. And if you do have young kids that have car seats, strollers, or what have you, that's going to be a bitch to go back and forth without that transportation.
Yeah. I think the economic circumstances of the day are what is leading maybe people with a little bit more disposable income than the family of 2, 3, 4, 5 from visiting Walt Disney World, at least right now. That might be what you're seeing there, George. And that's a concern too, because we know that families spend a lot more than couples or single guests, right? Mm-hmm. So that's, that also kind of adds this kind of compounding issue of not just falling attendance, but also falling per cap spend. Candid, you talked about your Walt Disney World trip. We might as well just get into it right now since we're on the topic right here. So how did it go? What was your experiences? Were they consistent with what George saw, maybe?
So going again for the second time, and all this research again, once again, because that's the kind of person I am, and all these OG55 videos scaring me, hey, you're going to do this. This is going to happen here. I got there, and honestly, I had one of the best times I've ever had in a park. And it was amazing. I applauded, like, in my mind, obviously, I applauded the park. So, like, dude, this is, like, I haven't been to a theme park in over 3 years. I'm like pre-pandemic park right now. Wow. So this was my first time actually getting out with the family and going to do like a really big trip because, work and everything like that too. And it met all my expectations. The only thing that I could say, if I did stay on property, I think it would have been tough, like I mentioned, without having a shuttle. And I think the reservation system blocking me out and not allowing me to get on certain rides at times because you're not in that park was tough. And having to drag my 4-year-old and my 1-year-old around to get on a bus, to get onto a monorail, to get off a monorail, to go around a loop, to get back on a monorail, to get to the other park, to make sure I can get in the park by 2:00 and get a virtual queue to get on a certain ride was a pain in the ass. But besides that, beautiful. It was great. If I was to say the only bad thing I think that happened is once I wrote you guys about standing in line to get across that lagoon on that boat, you are literally a tuna, like stuck in this weird, I don't even know what it is. There's like a line that the queue line for it is maybe like 10 people deep. And then it's just like a sea of people standing there, and they block you out, and you can't get out of there.
Oh yeah, once you're in, you're stuck. You're stuck in that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had, I think we had an hour to get to the shuttle to make it back to our hotel, and we literally made it. Like I was running with the kids, 2 minutes left, and they're waving the thing. It took us that long just to get on that boat, and not only that too. There's families just sitting there. Their kids are crying. This one lady behind us, her daughter was sick. She was literally throwing up in the bushes behind us. And I'm looking at my mom, I'm like, I need to get out of here. We can't get out. There's no way.
Do you want a little tip? Do you want a little tip with that? Because I've done that many times. A little tip that I know, and somewhat sarcastic, but I find that it does help. Have yourself a nice chimichanga with a side of a milkshake. I guarantee you, people will move.
Yep. That's great. That's great.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So there's like this like almost gangplank where a queue is forming on,
and it's like, and everybody is so clustered, and then it's like you have to try to maneuver of like, okay, who goes next to get onto the plank to board the boat?
It's a haunted mansion. It's a giant haunted mansion room.
Yeah,
in a sense, like.
But the difference is, yeah, exactly. But the difference is, at least you can kind of somewhat spread out when you get into the stretching room, where it's like now you have a cluster of people that's trying to get on a plank that's literally like this big, and you have to go one by one behind the other, and it's like,
There's no turning back.
That's it.
Yeah. But besides that, man, it was great.
OG's worst nightmare.
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm claustrophobic, and I don't do well like that. Like it
was bad.
Man. Like if I like, here's the thing with me, I can be in a cozy little nook and I'm fine if I know that if I want to get out, I can get out. But what he's saying is like once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
But I'm sorry, and not to make fun of the situation, because I know how bad it could be, OG. You know, it's like when you have like, you know, those moments where it's like, oh my God, I got to get out. But I'm sorry, your reaction when we went on Indiana Jones, like you were like, just get me off this elevator. And it's like, we got up here like, okay, I did it. And it's like, oh wait, I got to go back down. Shit.
I'm telling you, everybody at home, if you think I'm white now, okay, you should have saw me that day. I was 3 shades wider. 3 shades.
Yeah. Well, I gotta ask you, OG, about what your feelings are on this Titanic sub here and those interior shots right there.
That's crazy.
All I'm thinking is OG. I'm like, oh, that's his worst nightmare right there. Sorry, Ken.
You're good. You're good.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
I do want to say that I got on both rides, both the new ones, Tron, and I got on Guardians. And
Fantastic.
it was easy, like really easy. I had multiple virtual queues I could have gone on.
Nice. Now, can I ask you? It was your first time for both?
Yes, correct.
Okay, which one did you ride first?
I rode Tron first.
Okay, good. Good.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I am, living in California. I've been to Magic Mountain and I've been on the biggest and the baddest around. Tron's a good step in the right direction for people that have those teenagers or need a little bit of that thrill because they're not getting it anywhere else unless you go to Magic Kingdom or Animal Kingdom, excuse me. It was good. That launch was amazing.
The launch is like what makes it.
And that's it. And I'm 6'1", I'm 230. So I'm a pretty good size. And man, I had to throw my leg over and almost do the splits to get on that damn car. It was a little rough for me. So there's some people out there.
Luckily, because that was my worry for it. Because you have to kind of put your body in like a weird position. It was like after I was done riding, I was like, "Who got a cigarette?" It's like, geez.
You're riding it.
Yeah, so it was rough. It was a little rough like that, and but otherwise it was a great experience. Yeah. But let's talk about Guardian.
Cosmic Rewind. Yes. Tell me.
That was probably the most comfortable, beautiful ride vehicle I've ever been. Like to the point where I turned to the weirdo next to me because he was a little off. He had a little bit too much that day. You could smell it because I rode it by myself. And I'm like, wow, this is really comfortable. And he's like, yeah, it is comfortable. I'm like, this is great.
Honestly, I would bet more nervous at that to the fact of that you're sitting next to someone who had a few and is about to go on a ride that spins.
Fair.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very true. Very true.
But as far as like the whole entire ride experience, like
they got it dialed in, man. When you're taking a turn, you're not knowing if you're going to go with that turn or not. You might be going the opposite way, and
that's crazy.
It was smooth. I rode the front and I got all the way in the very back. Both were good. I actually like the front better, which is normally I like the back better. But the front ride was really good.
That I actually agree with. Believe it or not, the front you get more of a sensation, I guess, if you will, for the ride than the back.
It was more like powerful feeling, and it was smoother. Honestly, the back was still really smooth, but the front just was very smooth. And it was, if you think of Space Mountain like on steroids, that's what it is. And
wow,
it's fantastic. If anyone follows me on Twitter, I am not about putting multiple rides of the same rides in other parks. Like, have your West Coast, have your East Coast, and
sure,
that's why. But I would not be mad if they use that over here in California Adventure and somehow make it a what's a good one? Maybe a Captain America or something like that.
Yeah. Like a Captain America ride would be dope, dude.
And I'm telling you, I'm not a person that I would want to spend extra on an attraction. I ended up spending $50 for my multiple days to get an extra ride on Cosmic Rewind on top of the virtual queue. That's how good that attraction is.
It was really good. And I had 3 passes for that, and I could only leave the kids and the wife for 2 of those. They can only eat for so long. So I was like, all right, I'll let this last one pass, and I love them, but I regret it. I would have rode that 3rd time. It was fantastic. One more thing I do want to say before I turn it back to you guys is the pass. I did get the pass because we only went for 2 days because I had some other stuff we had to do, and it was, I can't remember the exact. I think it was $18 for one day, and then the next day was $20. And then I got 3 of them because the 1-year-old didn't need one, and it went very well. You can play those genie slots, as I heard some say, and we got on everything. 15 minutes or less. The longest line I waited in was Guardians of the Galaxy, and that was like a 30-minute wait for me. Everything else was walk on. With the kids, we rode Slinky Dog Dash twice. like it just walked right on.
Yeah, and that was, and I felt like in a sense when you asked me like for any tips, like in the messages, you kind of had like the horror stories. It's like, okay, prepare yourself because I haven't been down there in a year. And then from my own experience, I'm like, whoa, like what the hell is going on? This is like the complete opposite of all the tips that I gave you. And it's like, you didn't even need them.
Yeah. And, one tip I will give out as being a family man is that you that Slinky Dog Dash ride is not a beginner ride. I don't know who said that this is a kid's ride. That thing hauls and it turns. My son's head was like just bobbling everywhere. I thought he passed out halfway through, and we got off and he's like, I don't know about that, Dad. And I'm like, I don't know about that either. So we rode again, and so just be prepared. I would start with the Barnstormer first.
Did you have the back?
We did one front, one back on that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely, you
very
definitely
good ride,
throw it
though.
in the back. Yeah.
Really smooth, man. That was such a smooth ride for being a huge vehicle. That thing was massive.
Mm-hmm. It does move very smooth.
This is a couple photos from George here that he had detailing his experience on at Walt Disney World recently. Were these kind of crowd conditions indicative of your experience there, Candid?
I think that's probably 2 or 3 less people than I went. So that's amazing. And I think what days did you go, George? What days of the week?
These were, well, when I first started out, it was my first day was on a Saturday, and I went to the Magic Kingdom. And I was talking to Dre during the beginning of the day, and I said it's at about a 4 as far as crowd capacity goes. This particular day at Hollywood Studios, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. This was on a Tuesday.
Okay. And see, I did Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday was Magic Kingdom, and we stayed there almost probably to like 3, 4 o'clock, and then switched over to Hollywood. And by the time we got to Hollywood Studios, there was no one there. I got a reservation for Oga's. It was fantastic. Magic Kingdom, I will say that's probably one of the strangest parks compared to Disneyland and all the other parks. Trying to get on rides, just trying to get on Jungle Cruise in the morning was the weirdest thing. I never knew people wanted to go on Jungle Cruise that bad, like to the point where we just kind of walked past and like, we'll just ride everything else and get on everything else that no one wants to ride on. And I'll get
which it is actually that is true, because I mean the line for the Jungle Cruise was much longer than Big Thunder. And because I took to Twitter, I went on Big Thunder. It read as like a 30-minute wait, but my whole process from going in through the standby line all the way through, including the ride time, was 14 minutes.
Wow. That's fantastic. And see, I will say that's probably Big Thunder we got on like nothing. The last day, the next day, Thursday, we went back to the park. So we did a 3-park hop on Thursday because we got everything done at Animal Kingdom and Epcot. And we were like, you know what, let's go to Magic Kingdom one more time. Let the kids get on Winnie the Pooh, because that's one of the rides we didn't get on. And we didn't end up going on what was it we just talked about? I'm sorry. Brain fart. We ended up not going. So what happens? We went back. Rode Winnie the Pooh, and it started raining. We only had about 2 hours left in the park. So you just seen this crowd of people just leaving, and we're like, yes, this is normal for me. Like, I live in California. Like, we're gonna keep doing this. And so we ended up going, and we rode pretty much 4 or 5 more rides in that 2-hour time span. And we had pizza. There we go. This is bringing up things. I will say I have a complaint about the Pinocchio Village House. I am gluten-free, so I have certain things I can eat and cannot eat. Disney is probably one of the most accommodating places for me ever on this planet, and they always bring out the chef. They give you the little piece that, like, they make sure that you are not getting cross-contaminations. So we went in there. It took an hour for them to cook my pizza.
An hour?
And they didn't give me. They did not fulfill my whole order because it was gluten free, because they wanted to separate it. So I was sitting there probably about 20 minutes in. I got up and I was like, I need to get these kids some food. So I went. I need my other pizzas, please. So they were, oh yeah, they're right here. So they had them waiting instead of just giving to me, making me wait. So I ended up getting the pizzas given to the kids. in that whole 20-30 minute time frame, we're trying to find a seat. Even though it's only like an hour left of this park, this place is packed because it's raining and people are trying to eat. There is a cast member that was cleaning up and blocked off almost a whole section of seats. It would not let anybody go into that seat. Like, she shooed people away because she didn't want to reclean that section. So we had to wait for a family to get up, and we had to, wipe down. I'm not above wiping down my own table because you got to eat, you got to eat.
Oh, yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. So we end up just sitting down eating. I finally got my pizza after the kids were all done eating, and that was probably the only thing I had that I can complain about. That actually that's not really Disney. But I had that great cast member experience where I went to not Oga's Cantina, the what's the one next to Pirate Tortuga Tavern?
Tortuga Tavern, yeah.
Yeah, I went in there and they had a drink that I wanted and a burger. And I read online that the burger was gluten-free. And I got up there and made my order, and she ended up telling me it wasn't gluten-free. And I was pretty bummed because I had my mindset on it. And it was that barbecue bacon, like the barbecue pulled pork, I believe.
Sandwich. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's not gluten-free. They didn't have gluten-free buns. So I said, okay, well, never mind. Thank you. I'll go next door and get some tacos. And as I'm walking out, she says, wait, you still want your drink? And I said, no, I'm okay. I'll go. She's like, I'll get you the drink. So she ended up giving me the drink that I wanted because she felt bad that I couldn't actually get my food.
Oh, that's cool.
It was so nice of her. And it was that, I think the violet lemonade, which.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Fantastic.
That is phenomenal.
The best thing, like top 10 Disney thing you can get. I recommend that 100%. And, so what I did, I got on my app and I got her whole name and everything. I put it in there, gave her that that one up because she deserved it.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. And I'm for sure when the guys get back, they'll mention it again. But Disney just recently. Oh, cool. He's back. Oh, they're both back. Perfect. So that Candid was just mentioning about his cast member compliments. So, and then I have another question for you, but I thought that would be a great segue that Disney just recently had hit their 1 millionth cast member compliment. So I thought that's a really great feat. And I think it's very telling of how much people really pay attention and want to give their feedback and are they want that cast member experience. And,
yeah.
And I think that's something that is very, very much needed. And which that to me is the Disney difference.
Feedback is very important. When you go to the parks and you have a cast member that goes above and beyond, and we've had a bunch. We had Oscar from Cafe Orleans. Oscar is an MVP, man. He is amazing. When you have cast members like that, you have to let Disney know because we need more of that kind of cast member. Now, one thing that I also do wish they would include in the app, which this is probably going to be unpopular. Actually, hold on one sec. I might have to drop a little something here. Hold on one sec. Because I might be a little bit of a...
You need people like me so you can point.
I might be the bad guy for a second, but there should also be a feature that you can actually let them know when a cast member is not doing a good job, right? Because feedback goes both ways. I think that it's very important to let them know the cast members that are doing phenomenal work, give them all the raises, all the money, all the praise. But if you have a cast member who's rude to you, there's no excuse for that, and that kind of stuff. I think that there should be a feature in there that you can do that. Because right now, the only way you can really express that to Disney is if you go physically to City Hall, right? I mean, and wait in line. I mean, I think having it on the app would be much easier. What was that? I'm sorry?
I think that would end up getting abused. Because you got to remember, there are some unfavorable names that would just push that button because they didn't get the straw. And like I was telling George, like that cast member that was shooing people away from that area when we needed that seating, it's not to the point where I'm going to complain, but I would said if I didn't find my seat right away, I would have probably said something or just went and sat in that spot anyways, just because be human at some point. I get that you had to re-clean it, but you still had an hour left before the park closes. Village House is not closing. They don't close until till the end. And that's how it should be. Even when you're walking down Main Street, all that stuff's open, it's packed, and they're staying open till the last minute. And I think that should be anywhere you go. That's why you have to schedule people at certain times to close, and you give them a half hour to clean up.
Yeah. Well, and Disney has been having issues with their shift custodial cast members, so they're having to close like restrooms early. At least that's what's happening in Disneyland. I don't know if that was happening in Walt Disney World or not, but it's kind of an unfortunate process of trying to get back to 2019 levels while also trying to keep the pocketbook in play. It's interesting because even though the attendance is back, and you have figures like let's say. Pop Rock, for example, saying, "Oh well, we've exceeded our 2019 levels in terms of cast." It's like, but have you though? If you're scheduling in the way you are, and not necessarily having everybody on shift at times appropriate, that is unfortunate. But hey, 1 million mobile cast compliments. That's actually pretty good. Like I said, OG, I'd like an easier way than maybe going to City Hall to actually file a complaint, but
Yeah.
you don't want to abuse a system either. So it's a give and take for sure.
But at the same time, I think you can abuse it in the opposite direction too. You can have your friends at the park who's giving you all kinds of cast compliments because that's the homie, right? Like so it kind of works both ways with that. But yeah, I mean, I would certainly wouldn't want anyone to get fired or reprimanded for something that wasn't their fault, right? Or like a guest is abusing it.
Maybe only have options where you can only it gives you a list of certain things that's kind of it's restricted of how much if a cast member did this to you or did that, maybe not just very subtle bullshit. If you wanted to do something like that, then go stand in line at City Hall, but maybe have a category of if something really went wrong, this is what it could be, or something along those lines. But Candid, I had another question for you. When Dre actually had my photos up with the lack thereof of people in the parks that I had taken. Now you said you're a California local. Have you been to Disneyland recently?
No, like I said, I haven't been since 2019.
Okay. Yeah. I was curious because I wanted to see your take on if you ever go back, what would be your initial thoughts of the crowd levels at Disneyland as opposed to Disney World.
Gotcha. I can say if you wanted, if it's okay with you, the difference between rides at Magic Kingdom compared to Disneyland.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Do we have time?
Okay, yeah,
absolutely. Let's rock and roll.
Pirates, come on.
Oh yeah,
it's that queue line's great. I'll give them that, but you're missing a whole ride, and it wasn't. It was just for people that haven't been. I'm sorry, this is a spoiler. There's nothing in Magic Kingdom to me that really stands out. Maybe Haunted Mansion. I do enjoy their a couple of their show scenes that they have are really, really good, and even their Space Mountain. I know I'm gonna get backlash on that one.
Oh no, you're not. Go for it because I know. Yeah, you're good.
Super bumpy. They need a retrack. Having two tracks is cool. I think that's a great way to get people moving through that thing. But man, that is just rocky. And you're missing stuff. It's such a huge park with little to do. I had nothing to. My kids can do Fantasyland, and then where do you go after that? There was nothing to do.
Well, and this is what I was telling the guys when I was talking with them while I was down there, because it's almost of how you tackled Disney World is now a different way you have to tackle it, because normally with the amount of crowds of people, you can say, okay, it's a full day. It's going to take us an hour to get through this ride, and then an hour with the amount of people that's in the parks now, you basically have to kind of slow down instead of moving quicker, because it's you have to do a ride, take a little breather, then do another ride. You have to kind of stretch out the day because you can get it all done by 2:00. And it's okay, then, what do you do? And this goes back to the fact, I think, in my opinion, this is why Islands of Adventure has those numbers higher than the Florida parks, because there's more to do. And this is what the same retrospect is for Disneyland. And it's can't these people that sit down at these make these executive decisions to say, okay, we have to put more in each of these parks to keep people coming back?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the issue with that though is that they added 2 more, and it still isn't bringing them. But Tron and Cosmic Rewind. So it's like
Cosmic Rewind,
But this is-
replaced an attraction.
Yeah, but this
Well,
is
yeah,
what that's what Dre was saying. That's what Dre was saying. They have to do more than just do these single attractions that take 6 years just to do one. If you're going to take 6 years, create a whole new entire land and have 2, 3, 4 attractions within that land.
Right.
It's interesting. It's interesting how the industry will respond, because from what I understand, a lot of the raw materials and so forth, or when I say raw materials, prepared materials that they would get for these additions used to come from China, and now they're having manufacturing problems of their own, and you have this kind of reset in terms of manufacturing places and so forth. I know Epic Universe is dealing with that a lot right now. It's gonna be interesting to see how Disney kind of deals with that and their budgetary issues and their attendance issues, and it's just stacking up against them now. It's going to be a real interesting expo or Destination D, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see like what if part 2 we're going to get, so it's
I've kind of given up on Disney at these conventions, to be honest. I've been stood up at the altar way too many times at this point. Like, and it's not even just D23. I mean, it's Star Wars Celebration.
I'm not saying it's going to be a great expo. What I'm saying is it's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing
because there's nothing in the pipeline.
Right.
And the parks panel is one of the most popular panels they have during that weekend. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what are we going to see? Oh yeah, here's the completion of Tiana's Bayou Adventure. It only took us this long to show you what it is. Well, here's the completion of it.
I don't think that's going to move the needle right there, but there is one thing that they can do to fill out the day, let's say, at any one of these parks, and that is adding entertainment. Even Paul Presser knew that, by the way. So we are getting a little bit of that in the form of Steve Rogers the Musical coming to DCA. We finally have some more details on that. We have our dear friend Christopher Lenertz actually working on this show. I cannot wait to pick his brain on this thing after it debuts. It's going to be very interesting. But here it is right here. Scott Gustin reporting that Rogers the Musical will perform several times per day. We'll get back to that in a moment. Through Tuesday through Saturday, which is interesting, not a daily show, from June 30th to August 31st at DCA. So a very limited run, which we knew it was going to be, but wow, a couple months. Whew, okay. The show will use a virtual queue to access viewing areas, but is not required. This is a very interesting thing, that I think this is going to be a very big topic of discussion right here. Distribution begins at 10:30 a.m. PT for the first 2 shows and 2 p.m. PT for the other shows. About the virtual queue, you won't be able to choose your showtime. VQ is not required. The virtual queue is accessible starting at 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. via the app. Guests who begin their day at Disneyland may then enter DCA with their park hopper ticket after 11 a.m. for their designated showtime. And the showtimes are right here.
So it assigns you a showtime?
It assigns you a showtime that you yourself cannot pick. That
I don't like that.
And we're gonna need to talk about that because there's some interesting things going on with our trip. But this is fascinating. Now, did predict, by the way, that they were going to premiumize this in some way, and it looks like they are, right? So Disneyland will sell a Rogers the Musical premium viewing experience at Studio Catering Company Truck in Hollywood Land. The package includes popcorn, bucket, drink, lounge seating before the show, priority seating into the theater, and souvenir lanyard limited availability. So, guys, what do you think? This is... Go ahead.
Fuck that shit. If I'm going to pay that premium price, you're giving me the shield.
The shield.
Exactly, right. I believe it's $29 per person, if I recall correctly. So, this is...
Now, I'm assuming, like, they're kind of testing the waters with this to really see, like, how it's going to... See, that just goes to show you how well it's going to do. It's going to be pitch black.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Having some computer issues on my end.
You're good. But I think that they're kind of testing the waters with this, that when they do eventually put in a more robust permanent show back into the Hyperion, I'm assuming that this is the route that they're going to want to go.
Of course.
But I don't like... I mean, if they wanted to have a virtual queue to kind of limit the amount of people waiting in line or, waiting. I don't like the fact that it chooses a showtime for you because, again, if you have other plans or if you have a dining reservation, or if you have a return time to go back for, you using Genie Plus for an attraction, and you have to be back at DCA at the Hyperion at a certain time, I'm not a fan of that.
Well, and this is optional though. That virtual queue is not necessary to watch the show.
It said it's not. Oh, that's right, because it said it's optional.
So yeah, if you have like dinner plans at Lamplight or something, and then you could just, I'm assuming, just walk up and wait.
But are they saying that the people that are in the virtual queue, they get in before the people in the regular standby line?
I would think so. I don't know. Did they? Go ahead, Cannon.
All right, I got something to say about that. I've never been in that building because either I could never get I think it was a fast pass one at the time, and I stood in line once, and they were just, all right, come on in. Sorry, you have to wait for the next show, and that happened to me like 2 or 3 times. So I can't imagine this working out for them at all.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's optional, but people are going to go that route for the virtual queue, and then you have the people in the standby line thinking, "Okay, yeah, we're probably going to get in." But by the time that these people come back, that you're literally standing waiting until the fact that people have that virtual queue, that they have a certain amount of time, and then after they get all those people in, okay, now we could start loading the people in the standby line. I think that's going to be a mess.
It's going to be a mess. I was having this conversation with Ethan last night because he had called me. That's the buzz you heard on last night's recording, by the way. Very interesting. But he had called me, and we were talking about this whole thing. And I was just telling him,
real quick, Dre, before you go any further, Ethan, for those at home, is a theme park wizard. Check him out on YouTube. Awesome guy. Go ahead, Dre. Sorry about that.
I forget nomenclature. Right? I was talking to a theme park wizard on the phone there, and we got to chatting, and I was just telling him, look, is this complicating and a process that doesn't necessarily need to be this complicated? We knew that Frozen Live at the Hyperion, for example, did implement a show pass or fast pass type system where you had to be there at dawn, basically, get your show pass for a randomly distributed pass throughout the day, and then you can actually see that. And that was a very complicating factor right there. I will say, at least it's not a requirement that you have to get virtual queue just to get in here, but there's going to be limited standby availability. That's going to be a whole mess to actually parse out, because I'm sure it's going to be dynamic, as it would be. Not everybody is going to get a pass and then go to the show. So how that kind of ebbs and flows, that's going to be a really interesting thing there. 2 distribution times is good, I would say, but again, though, it's like, when you have, let's say, dining reservations and how these can, how these can conflict, will they actually be accommodating in that way? Who knows? I just told Theme Park Wizard, and I know Casual's going there on the first day, our buddy Casual, who, by the way, should be streaming today. So there you go. That's a little shout out there. After this show, you can tune into that. I told him, I said, it's going to be a shit show for the first, week or two. It just always is with Disney regarding these new systems until they kind of get their act together.
Honestly, but here's the thing that worries me. If you look at this time frame, June 30th to August 31st, that's not enough time. And honestly, sometimes those shit shows can extend a little bit longer. So who even knows by the time that this time frame that this show is going to last, it may be a shit show all the way through its running.
I'm questioning the end date. I think that if this thing ends up becoming popular with the magic key holders and all that, or they're getting good feedback for the show itself, I could see them pushing that out another month or something, because it does seem like a pretty short window. And if it's super popular and people are really responding well to it, I would imagine they'd extend it out. But I'm just assuming here. But
we know that our boy, Do Trust Me Bro, has specifically stated that the new show is in production, from what I understand. Like, the permanent show is in production.
Right.
And this is going to be a temporary show to kind of like get you through that.
Right, the bridge.
I'm thinking they're taking a conservative approach, because it's like, these things are expensive. We don't know how people are going to react to it before we actually put it on the calendar.
Exactly. They would rather this sink the ship, so to speak, than the actual real permanent show.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is, like, maybe extend it like another month or something. Nothing crazy. Not a year or nothing like that.
Some people were speculating as to why this was actually closing at August 31st, and well, that really coincides with the start of Halloween season. If you look at the calendar, there are they closing this because there's a treat trail in the previous lobby of the Hollywood of the Hyperion back there and the Hollywood Land backlot there, or is it because of something else but holiday related?
That would make sense because in the description for Oogie Boogie Bash, they said there's going to be more villains, more treat trails, so that is a possibility.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. That's fascinating, dude. That's fascinating.
Would think if there's overwhelming demand for this and this is extremely popular, and hey, maybe it even books a vacation package or two, I would think that they would move some of those treat trails over while still having this play in the day or whatever, so it doesn't directly coincide with or a conflict, let's say, with Oogie Boogie Bash. I'd think that would happen, but it's really kind of interesting. 2 months. This is a big production right here. I've never quite seen anything done at this scale with this short a time frame. It has to be just the initial approval, I would think.
Yeah. I'm fascinated to see how this show lands, because I think this is one of those things that could either be like a brilliant concept that just works on every level, or it could be like a total shit show. Right, because if you guys seen this, I believe it was it Hawkeye that this was featured in? I believe on Disney Plus.
I believe so.
I believe it was Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun little show, but it's like, how is that gonna translate in a theme park environment, right?
I think they also said it was going to be more than 45 minutes long, so it's like, ooh, this is quite the production for a joke, like you said, OG.
45 minutes? Is that really?
I mean, and I don't really doubt it, because it takes so long to load this thing. And if you look at the intervals of these show times right here, there's at least an hour and a half between each one.
How long
Typically,
was
that tells you
how long was Aladdin? How long was Aladdin and Frozen?
Similar times, if I'm not mistaken. They were anywhere between, I would say, 40 to 50 minutes. Okay. So it's Hyperion length is what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's just, can a joke be extended out to this time and be satisfactory for guests? I know he does have musical numbers in his kind of lineage right there, which they did reference, but it's going to be interesting.
I will say, I live on the East Coast. There are certain things that would really draw me to literally buy a plane ticket and fly over to California. And that's usually Indiana Jones, the Matterhorn, Mission Breakout, and of course, Rogers the Musical.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a Hulk.
Well, that is a thing there. Interesting too. I think Disney just got those Hulk rights back for the studio, so that's going to be, maybe we get more Hulk in these parks. It's going to be fascinating. But you know who we are actually getting in these parks? It's going to be Nick Fury right here from his his stint on, what is it? What's the show called? Secret Invasion?
Yep.
That's interesting.
Can I just be so bold? Like when you brought that picture up, I literally thought it was someone that took a snapshot of someone on Harbor.
If you don't know what he's talking about, guys, Harbor is a little rough these days, as is some places in Southern California. This is an interesting one to me because, look, the fact that we're getting Nick Fury in the parks is awesome, but it's kind of this, post-Shield version of Nick Fury, who's kind of on the run, right? Who's, I think the last thing that we saw with him, other than Captain Marvel and some other ancillary material, was that he was on the run after what happened with, I believe, Winter Soldier and those events, if I'm not mistaken, right there. Well, so it's kind of and
here's the thing. This is my issue, and I know there's no way around it.
Cool.
Right.
When you have a face character, but a face character that is based off of a real life person who is portraying a character. When you have an animated character, you can kind of get away with finding, but everyone initiates Nick Fury with Samuel L. Jackson, and this is not Samuel L. Jackson.
I was just gonna say that, George. Like, we're eye to eye with this. Like, that's the thing. It doesn't look like Sam Jackson.
Reference.
Well, and then exactly.
Come
Sorry, Fury. No, but that was the thing the issue I had with the Wanda walk around, because no one's gonna beat my girl right here, you know, like right? Like,
and by the way, folks, this is OG's poster behind his bookshelf.
Yeah, that's the one he was trying to hide for y'all, just so you understand.
Yeah, but this they tried, I guess, but I don't know, man. This doesn't look like Nick Fury to me. It just doesn't.
So it's an interesting thing, because it's not even just like, you know, it's Samuel Jackson versus whatever actor's playing him in the Avengers campus. It's like the version of Nick Fury that's a really interesting one, because dude literally looks homeless. Like I guess is not necessarily the best first showing for this character. I would say, at least, you know, the way I look at it. I don't know. I know that's consistent with his character in the series. I fully understand that. But usually when people think of Nick Fury, they think of like the Avengers version of Nick Fury, of the original film from 2012. So interesting choice for sure.
What's this character going to do, though? That's the thing.
Yeah, that's
like,
a good point, too.
Like, are people going to line up to meet this Nick Fury? And what are those interactions going to be like? Like, what do you say to Nick Fury? I don't know.
It's weird. I appreciate the effort. At least they're putting the characters in, unlike Galaxy's Edge. At least they're putting the effort in, and the synergy with this land, with the shows, has been really, really cool. I just think that, really strong. I think George makes a great point, though. When you have a person as famous as Sam Jackson, it's really hard to get someone that looks like Sam Jackson, and it always just looks a little wonky to me. Like, I don't know. It doesn't really work.
I agree.
Wanda was the same thing. And there's no disrespect to the cast members. Cast members are phenomenal, but it's just you don't look like the star of the show or the movie. It just doesn't look like that person, you know?
Yeah, I'm when I first saw him, I was like, ooh, okay, we're getting that version. All right, that's a choice right there. I just don't know how it'll play ultimately. I am glad, though, that they are kind of freshening up the land with these the inclusion of these characters.
I just wish that they would. Just wish they would freshen up the land with that e-ticket.
Come on, Disney.
I know. Well, hey, look. In lieu of big capital investment, what can you do? You can do entertainment. So these things are easy to approve.
Yeah,
relatively speaking.
Yeah.
I wanted to go ahead. Let's see what else is on the topic here. Oh, yes. Let's go ahead and let's. Well, before we leave DCA, actually, there's a number of stories that are a little bit smaller but are just as impactful, right? OG, this is going to be a favorite of yours right here. I saw your retweet, so I felt, well, there you go. I might as well bring this up right here. For the first time since the world did what it did, 2 train ops for the dear old trolley in DCA. Come on, guys. We gotta give that a little bit of praise right here, right?
I gotta say, you know, no, this is great news. I mean, I've no secret I'm a huge fan of the red car trolley. I think it adds a lot to DCA. It's a lot of great kinetic energy. I got to give credit to Disney for even bringing this thing back, right? Because there weren't a whole lot of people in the fan community that really spoke out and said, like we did here, but a lot of fans didn't really. When it was gone, when the parks reopened, a lot of fans really didn't talk about it. This isn't like a hot item with park goers, like casuals and normies, right? So it would have been very easy for Disney just to say, like, you know, we're not going to bring it back. It would be a money saver. But hey, kudos to them. They brought it back, you know. There's not a huge return on investment with this thing, you know. And not only did they bring it back, but now they brought 2. So, hey, you know what? We can criticize when we criticize, but I think this deserves a lot of praise because the red car trolley adds a lot to this park.
And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's the small subtle things that really have a major impact.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. When you see this thing going through Buena Vista Street, it's just like it adds so much flavor to that land. And it really does separate it from like Main Street, because Main Street is at like Americana turn of the century kind of town, Marceline, Missouri. And when you have the red car, it really feels more like an urban, like Los Angeles, you know? So it's awesome. This is fantastic news. Absolutely fantastic. Well done, Daddy Josh. Well done.
100%. Also, too, a little small story here before we leave our dear, Disneyland Resort right here. Very small story.
Who's that guy? That's familiar.
Seems familiar, right? This is Dave from Fresh Baked. Revealing to the world here that the little stagecoach outside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is back. It had been gone for some time, some months. It had been gone, and people thought initially it was going to be refurbished, and then it was gone for a long, long time, and then everybody's like, "Oh, okay, maybe it's just gone for good." Glad to see these things be restored. Theme park maintenance, I think, is a hot button issue right now at Disneyland Resort or Disney parks in general. And to get this thing back, pretty cool.
If you can zoom in on the door of that stagecoach, I don't know if you can or not, but there's actually a little Easter egg on there. Keep going a little bit, and then go to that door of the poor Dave.
Yeah, sorry, Dave.
It says Wilderness Expeditions and Delivery, WED.
It's kind of in the Knott's kind of logo right there.
Right.
So it's a Knott's reference, and then WD
Imaginary.
WED Enterprises. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I actually
Pretty
seen
dope.
something on Twitter where someone took it and put the Notch symbol right over it.
Oh man,
That's pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty.
It's definitely
that's
been a
good.
Knott's text, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool. You always like to see that.
Well, it's a nice little homage if they did it on purpose. Nice little homage to both Imaginary and Knott's, because Knott's is a very kind of like cowboy kind of park, right? So this is very fitting for an homage to Knott's. So hopefully they had that in mind. That's pretty cool.
It is. Well, now we jump across. Go ahead.
I just want to say we love Knott's. Knott's is family to the Disneyland Resort, unlike fucking Universal, man. The bitches over there at Universal, nah. But Knott's, we love you, Knott's. You're good people. You're the homie. We're good with you.
Hashtag we're not shills.
Yeah, with a K. Pretty good stuff right there. Okay, well, we'll get to University of Hollywood maybe in a moment. I don't know. We'll see how much time we have. But I wanted to touch on this story just real fast. This is a park in Germany, actually. Germany's Europa Park, their biggest theme park in that country. They heard 2 or 3 loud bangs, and a huge fire broke out. And you can kind of see some video of this.
Dude, this is nuts, man.
It's a pretty wild story,
Did anyone get hurt? Because this is a massive fire. This isn't like a little thing here.
This was a huge fire, for sure. I've been reading articles, and I don't actually remember if anybody was hurt. I don't think so. So people were seen leaving the park, often dubbed the Disneyland of Germany, while others stood filming the smolder, with witnesses claiming that there had been an explosion. Police confirmed to German newspaper Bild that the huge blaze broke out at around 4:40 p.m. Local time resulting in 25,000 people being evacuated. Quote, it banged loudly 2 or 3 times. After that, a huge fire could be seen, eyewitness said. The man claimed that the fire had broken out on the Atlantica Super Splash track. So that's interesting. But you can see, I mean, this is a pretty big blaze right here. This is something right here. You can see this right here too. Could be seen for miles, and definitely very disturbing while you're actually in an active theme park right there.
Yeah.
3 firefighters were taken to the hospital with minor injuries. I'm trying to see if anybody else maybe was injured. I don't think so, but that's tentative right there, folks. I don't want to be affirmative on this, but I wanted to highlight this story only because, the Disney company's going through a lot right now. It really, really is. And, well, Disneyland suffered its own fire from Murphy the Dragon that lit up in a blaze on during an evening performance of Fantasmic a little while ago. And it's interesting. It always kind of stuck out to me when a friend of the channel, WDW Pro, actually did a video on it. He was saying, look, I mean, for as bad as this blaze was, Disney kind of rolled a solid hand here or solid play, because it could have been a lot worse. Right?
Pro is absolutely right on that. I agree with Pro. I mean, for what happened that night at Fantasmic, it could have been an absolute disaster at Disneyland. And actually, that's, I think, kudos to the design team from back in the late 80s when they were designing Fantasmic with the stage and everything. You know, the stage, very, very well designed, where everything is placed in a certain way where when there's disasters or things like that happen, the whole thing doesn't go up. Also, to the Murphy team, the original Murphy team in 2009, you know, I think you got to give a little credit in regard to that. It was a very isolated sort of thing. Now, look, by no means am I giving them a pass. Disney still shit the freaking bed with this. The gas lines or whatever the issue ended up being, there's no excuse for that. But I think the actual design and the placement of the dragon and what have you on the island, I think contributed to it being far less of an issue than it could have been, is all I'm saying. I think Pro is right on that. It could have been far worse.
Could have been far worse. Fortunately, Europa was able to open up next day, which was pretty crazy.
That's
obviously, one less area
down.
Yeah, they probably marked it off with some construction walls, and that area of the park wasn't accessible. But it could have been a lot worse. You know, we take these things for granted sometimes. I know, OG, you and I have had conversations about how special Disneyland is and how it can't really be replicated even if it does go up in flames or it gets struck by an earthquake or whatever. So I'm just glad that nothing worse happened and it was just the dragon. That being said, the dragon was a huge loss and I'm very sad about it. So there you go.
It sucks, man. Yeah, and hopefully we get the same dragon. Daddy Josh, this is your test. If you're watching or your team's watching this, you have to replace the dragon as it was. Do not give us the head-on-a-stick dragon that Florida has. We need our dragon back. Now, you can mess with the fire mechanism. We get that. Safety, you know, whatever. You want to do a projection mapping flame, do what you want with that. Sure. But I need that dragon back. And if we get a head-on-a-stick thing, I'll be pissed. OG, I'm gonna rant. I'll do a full-blown rant video for 45 minutes if that happens.
Look, just, you know, if you want to bring the fire effect back, just do it with electronic actuation rather than hydraulic. You know, I'm not saying that was the cause of it, but we know that stuff is flammable sometimes, and there are ways to mitigate our damages.
And despite of how the Florida Dragon is, you know, they still have the fire effect where it shoots out of the mouth, but it doesn't necessarily propel into the water. Flame. It's more like just an oversized lighter.
Right.
Okay.
And by the way, hey, if you're making one, you might as well make two, right? So we don't want to leave our Walt Disney World friends out of it, for sure. Staking in Europe.
Be fair to Florida.
Be fair to Florida.
Yeah.
Be fair to Florida.
You got to be fair to Florida.
This is kind of an interesting story here developing out of Paris. If anybody's been keeping track of this, you'll know. But DLP Report has been pretty much the only guys consistently keeping track of this. There has been a series of strikes that have been happening in park. So I guess it's to do with their the French version of the Constitution. Let's say that you know, it's not like it here in America where it's like there's public and private property, because strikes and what is it? What do you want to call it? These protesting, let's say, is so ingrained in their culture. You could do it on private property as well. So this is kind of an interesting thing here.
And this is why I want my first Disney International Park to be Tokyo.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, right.
And here's the thing too. I mean, I don't know. Like, okay, I respect them for what they're fighting for. Obviously, you always respect anyone for fighting for a living wage or higher pay or whatever you can do to put food on your table.
But there's certain ways of going about doing it, and I feel like this isn't the proper way to do it.
Well, yeah, because you're basically saying that, like, my money is more important than your money. So what about the people that pay to get into that park? Like, their money doesn't matter now. They're kind of, their experience is ruined because of your actions. So it's like, you know, yeah, I support you in your fight for higher wages, but at the same time, you're not respecting guests and the money they spent, and is kind of how I see it.
Mm-hmm. You'll see that some of these protesters are actually wearing their cast member uniforms and so forth, and Now that I'm thinking about it, I believe the Paris parks are partly owned by the French government, so maybe that's why they're given the ability to protest in the actual parks, which we've never really seen before. It's quite a fascinating thing here. Well, there is an update on this story here. It says right here, the Disneyland Paris cast member unions shared that Disneyland Paris has invited them to a meeting on June 26 in order to, quote, take stock of the situation and share the calendar of negotiations in the second half of 2023. So far, no new strike action has been announced. But it does seem like they're meeting, at least.
Good.
That's good, at least.
That's the best I can say. I don't know if anything fruitful will come out of it. But
hopefully some negotiations could be handled where, it can kind of get back to some civilized day-to-day activities in the park.
Yeah. Right, exactly. This brings us to our next story. Now, coming back to the United States here, Joe Rohde's made some interesting comments on social media that had everybody kind of like, oh, this is kind of interesting. So I'll read you the original tweet here. This he was responding to, MW, Millionaire 2K, who was saying, long rumor, it was known even while under construction that if it, this being the Yeti at Expedition Everest over there in Disney's Animal Kingdom, that if it broke, a portion of the mountain, that is Expedition Everest itself, would have to be removed to get into it to fix it. Is this true, and why was it built that way in the first place? All that money spent on something that couldn't be fixed? That's the query. Joe Rohde responds then, no, that rumor is not true. The issue is a complex interface between finance, operations, marketing, design, timing, engineering, narrative, and guest satisfaction. All of these need to line up to make a viable solution. There are solutions. There are not opportunities.
His response actually completely, for everybody, us and everybody watching, think about this, what he's saying, because he's saying that the fan narrative out there, that the mountain has to be removed. We've heard this for years, everybody. Fans spew this stuff on social media as if it's absolute fact. It turns out it was absolute bullshit. And that's why when I hear fans talk about this, that, and the other, and always take it with a grain of salt, y'all, because a lot of times they don't know what they're talking about. And clearly fans didn't know. And it's spread around like it's just common knowledge, like, oh yeah,
But the only thing that I don't understand is, and nothing against Joe Rohde, the man is a freaking genius, in Imagineering, but why this wasn't brought up much sooner, that it wouldn't give the aspect of people to say, oh, it's because of the mountain. Like, why did it take this long that so many people were trying to get the issue addressed than to say, okay, was it an obligation while he was within the company that he could only say so much, and now everything's starting to come to a head?
I think access to the Yeti is still limited. Now, as taking out a side of the mountain, I don't think necessarily that part is true. But because access is limited, that would obviously grow out not only the budget, but the time required to actually fix the Yeti properly and keep him functional. From what I understand, it wasn't necessarily a problem with the Yeti itself, but it was its interconnectivity to the rest of the mountain, so much that there was so much power. It was breaking the mountain, essentially, or maybe just his platform that he was on. Either way, you are talking about a tremendous amount of work, and he is stating that there are not opportunities, and that's a really interesting thing. You can take that a variety of ways, and I think the best take on this that I saw was from our very own Wildest Ride, friend of the channel right here. He actually had a great kind of reply to this, saying, reading between the lines, finance people don't see an ROI or return on investment. I think that's very true. So they won't approve a fix. Guests are happy, or at least happy enough. Marketing doesn't want to point out that they haven't fixed something for 15 years after it broke. And Ops doesn't want to lose 12.5% of its attractions in that park. Animal Kingdom.
He hit the nail on the head. Yeah, absolutely. Hit the nail on the head. Most guests don't care. Most guests, the normies, don't even know what it was before. They don't even remember. It's been so long.
my
Cannon,
thing
go
is
ahead.
keep that rumor going. Like keep it going for a year. Because guess what? Oh, they have to take off a whole mountain. Damn, I don't think they're gonna be able to take off a whole mountain. That's someone's thought. So why would Disney? Oh yeah, you know what? We can actually take off this mountain and put that in there. Here's $1 million, $2 million to keep doing it. Or let's not spend anything. Put disco lights on it, and we'll just keep this rumor going.
That's
I don't know.
fascinating.
Smart business choice in my mind.
And we were kind of
Yeah.
having this conversation before the show, and this kind of ties back to how much you're limited within each park. And if they were to shut this ride down, especially at a park like Animal Kingdom, that's going to be now it goes from 6 attractions down to 5. And this is a popular attraction that draws people in. So it's like Disney's hands are tied in that sense of not knowing. And again, until something else kind of, and a lot of people thought another rumor was going to be that when Pandora opened, they would fix the Yeti. Well, unfortunately, as popular as Pandora is, it's just not enough to keep the park running to sustain these attractions to go down for very long.
Well, and this isn't the only attraction having problems, as you bring up there, George. Dinosaur attraction continues to struggle ahead of possible Zootopia retheme at Animal Kingdom. So it's not just this. It's not just one attraction that is maybe having a maintenance problem in the form of the Yeti. At least that's limited to a figure, right?
Yeah,
And the attraction
and that's been going on
itself.
for years.
And I
exactly.
actually was down there, and I actually made a tweet on Twitter while I was there, and I actually shouted out to our buddy Showcase, because we all know how he is about the dinos. And it was, unfortunately, I went on this attraction several times, and every time there was something that was wrong with the actual dinos themselves. There was like 4 audio animatronics that were not functioning properly. And it just makes me wonder, is that Disney kind of doing like what they did with Disneyland Splash Mountain, where it's like, why put any money into an attraction that's just not going to be there for very long?
Right. I think there is a reality in which this attraction is replaced. Now, I think the Moana thing, we're going to have to give that some time, especially as the live action remake is in the works, and the company will reevaluate just how viable a big expansion like that is for the actual park.
And
itself.
that'll be and that particular section would be kind of brand new. It's like, aside from Moana coming to Epcot, but this particular land would be something new. And where with Zootopia, they can just do a carbon copy from Shanghai.
Well, it's interesting. You say carbon copy. I think they would have to reformat a little bit, but to overlay an attraction is a lot less of a cost, especially with pre-existing assets than it would be to rebuild.
Let me rephrase that. They would already have a land that's based off of an IP that they have a much easier way to transition into the land.
Right. You can see this right here. This figure right here is not moving.
Mm-hmm. That was one of them.
Everything's static.
Yep.
That was one of them.
When I went too, and just dark. There half the lights weren't on. Probably like half the whole ride was just blank.
Yeah,
it's really unfortunate. And again, as Wildest astutely pointed out, this is 12.5% of the entire attraction mix over there at Disney's Animal Kingdom. So when you have a ride like this not doing very, very well, it is kind of a hindrance to your overall experience of that entire park that people are paying, excess of $100 a day to be in.
And I will still vote that whole area. Just give me some indie there. I think would be great.
Yeah.
Just a little indie.
Well, we'll have to see after the Dial of Destiny box office comes back. Yeah, that's not going to be good. So, Zootopia, it is.
How hard is it to maintain that ride vehicle, like that system, you think? 'Cause I know Indy's always down.
Yeah. The ride system itself is laborious, right? So you have a series of EMV vehicles, basically motion simulators on a moving track right there. So you have the motion simulators themselves that you have to maintain, but also it's their interplay with the track and everything that goes along with that. So if it's if a Jeep is 1 inch out of alignment or not where it's supposed to be, the whole thing shuts down. So that really gets complicated there.
A log flume would probably save them money in the long run.
Well, I mean, maybe, possibly. I could see them replacing this ride system, but go ahead.
But I would think, wouldn't the Moana log flume be over where Chester and Hester's Dino-Rama is? If we looked at both of wasn't this in particular going to be, if it was for Zootopia, wouldn't they just kind of, because the spinner, that was replacing Triceratops spin, so the log flume to me would look like in the area where Primeval Whirl was.
That's what I have heard, George. And then Zootopia takes the place of Dinosaur. You could necessarily replace the entire ride system. I don't know if they would commit to that necessarily, as crazy as it sounds. While it is an expense, you would have an IP that would be much more popular. That might, let's say, justify that cost.
But now, also, too, we have talked about this on the show several times, how it's funny how certain attractions at Disneyland don't operate necessarily the same way at Walt Disney World. Take Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, for instance. At Disneyland, it's down multiple times a day, where at Florida, it is not. So despite of what's going on with Dinosaur now with the audio animatronics, but the ride system never really shuts down, where with Indy, it has more of the vehicle issues that knocks it down.
I think there's a couple reasons for that. One is, I think with their newer implementation of the EMV vehicle, because as we know, Indiana Jones opened in 1995 at Disneyland. Dinosaur was an opening day attraction for the park when it opened in 1998, so that's kind of there's a little bit of a difference there. And I think the second time around it was like, okay, we're going to learn some lessons there. Whether that equates to design changes, I think there were. One of those we can actually refer to, because George, I believe Dinosaur doesn't have a dual loading system like Indy does. I think it's just you could load two vehicles, but I think it's single file, whereas there's kind of this
I believe because there's two sides, but I'm trying to think now that you mentioned that.
It was damn so much I didn't pay attention to it. I know Indy, you get off and you can go split path.
I think Dinosaur only has one path where it's like
two.
One. Is there two?
It's two, because remember, you come down the stairs and the cast member will tell you go left.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes. Yeah. So they do have a dual, either left or right down off the stairs. Yes, they do.
That's very interesting.
I had to think there for a second. That is sick.
I had to pull that from like the depths.
But actually,
I haven't been back since I was 12, so I'm really relying on these guys here.
Well, and actually, too, you had mentioned, Dre, if you look at this piece of concept, I think it's funny that Moana is in the forefront opposite of Zootopia. Because as I had said, that they can kind of take inspiration from Shanghai, but I think it's kind of funny that the land that has no reference of a copy, that they are showing less of Zootopia. So I wonder then if it would be more original than what Shanghai is getting. And that's why they're trying to configure out, as you had mentioned, they would have to kind of change some things.
I think the implementation will be original in that they are most likely going to reuse Dinosaur, its infrastructure. Maybe it's obviously its ride layout, but maybe its queue layout and so forth. And they'll have to adapt certain assets that they created for Shanghai over to this in that particular way. So it will be original-ish, but I think it'll still be derivative of what Shanghai is getting.
I will say it'll be very telling that if Candid went in May, Dinosaur's not working. I went in June, Dinosaur's not working. If we get down there in July and August and the same dinosaurs are still not working, I think it's pretty much safe to say we're one step closer to getting a complete rechange of that section of the park.
And we did have this same effect happen, not with Dinosaur, but actually with another theme park attraction, right? In the form of Splash Mountain. Splash Mountain on both coasts were in rather rough shape. There were attempts to fix a few things, but they were in rather rough shape than maybe how people might have remembered this attraction fondly when it debuts in 1989 and 1990, respectively, on both coasts. it's interesting. I wanted to bring this up real fast. This is a current picture, by the way, by Theme Park Casual, good friend of the channel right there. I wanted to bring this up because the person who was not maybe primarily responsible, but very responsible for this attraction going down at all was recently removed. So Disney's Chief Diversity Officer, Latondra Newton, exits the company. Now, we did talk about this in the studio context when we learned about it firsthand on a previous show.
While we were recording.
Exactly, while we were recording. Again, I do apologize. I'm not going to get too controversial for you, so don't worry if you're getting nervous here. I wanted to bring this up for a couple of reasons, though, because, so we were hearing for a long time that the rumor was that the Stories Matter group, who, by the way, Latondra Newton was a big proponent of and helped form that along with Carmen Smith and some others as part of her Reimagine Tomorrow initiative and everything like that. There was a lot of rumors going around that they were going to go through and set about reimagining not just Splash Mountain, but of a plethora of attractions. And some of those... go ahead.
And before you move on, and I just have to add, and that's very telling to the fact of how much confidence that they have with this overhaul to then let her go before this thing even opens.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a very astute point, George. And look, I mean, you only have to look at the box office and go, something's got to change, right? It's interesting how they're going in that direction with it. We saw Christine Waysons McCarthy actually be ushered out of her position within the company, going from CFO to now an advisory role. But even in that context, right, she was able to give a statement on the whole thing and recommit herself to another portion of the company. Latondra Newton didn't get a goodbye farewell statement. Okay, it was the people that she reported to that actually gave a statement on her behalf. Do you think
that was her choice?
Well, the people that reported to her. See, that's the thing. I don't think it was her choice, because if you're Latondra Newton and your goal is to...
Do you think the company was going to be feared of what she was going to say on her way out?
Possibly. I don't think she left necessarily willingly. I think that's a distinction right there. Some people are saying, well, maybe these are rats jumping off the ship before it sinks or whatever. I don't necessarily think it's that bad. I do think Iger's making moves right here. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up in the park segment is because Latondra Newton, along with Reimagine Tomorrow, Stories Matters, and all of that, they were looking at going through and changing attractions that we love in their current forms, but maybe not are the most politically correct for today's modern audiences, right? One of those being the Enchanted Tiki Room, the other being Carousel of Progress, American Adventure,
Peter Pan's Flight.
There was quite a few of them that were on this list looking to be reimagined in some way. Maybe not to quite the extent that Splash Mountain is, but each one of them had their issues that they wanted to address in varying ways. With Latondra Newton gone, and more importantly, we have not heard at all from the Reimagine Tomorrow crew or anything regarding Reimagine Tomorrow since the Rufo report, I think.
Right. No, you're 100% correct. Tells you a lot. That's what I'm saying. Disney is moderating. Now, they will never be full-blown conservative. They will never be the Daily Wire. If you're on the right and you want that, that's not going to happen. It's a pipe dream. But the pendulum is swinging, and Disney is going more towards the middle. They just are. Now, does that mean they're going to get rid of diversity? No, of course not. And they shouldn't. They absolutely shouldn't. But you're just going to see more of a less kind of focus on the identity politics, the way they market these things. And even with Little Mermaid, right? The marketing for Mermaid was much different than, like, say, the marketing for Captain Marvel, right?
Yep.
It was much more of a social justice push with Captain Marvel. With Little Mermaid, they really didn't go all in on that, I mean, they really didn't. They focused on Halle being an incredible talent, and she kind of did like the press tour and all that. And there were a few comments here and there, but it wasn't anything.
On the press tour. Yeah.
It was what?
There was a few comments on the press tour, but it wasn't anything like Captain Marvel.
Nothing like that from a few years ago. Yeah. So we're already seeing that. This is a big sign.
And it's also, it's like we spoke on the phone last night, the three of us, when we had mentioned like Iger making the 7,000 cast member cut or what have you, or the 7,000 employee cut, that this is something separate than just that. This is something that they are dwindling down one by one, that's internally within the company, that may or may not have issues, or just a position that they feel like is not worth keeping around to keep spending the money on.
This is after Iger and his team have cut thousands of employees and big guys at the Walt Disney Company right here. I think this is really fascinating how we've gotten not one, but two big C-suite exits right here. And like I said before,
Iger just loves 2. Like, that must be his favorite number.
OG, I'll repeat this for you right here. You're right there, George. You see, Christine Wastelands McCarthy, she got an exit statement. Latondra, she didn't get an exit statement, did she?
Nope, she did not.
Which tells you what kind of terms that she may have left on right here. I don't think they were of the greatest of terms. Well, now, the only question I'm asking myself is, what's going to happen to her beloved jewelry company? Come on, where are we going to get fine jewelry? Yeah,
well, now she got a lot more time to focus on that, right?
I guess so. That's an interesting thing there. Very suspicious jewelry company. But bringing it back to the parks here, it's like, does this kind of Story Matters initiative go forward with the reimagining of some of these classic attractions? I think from the controversy that they've kind of stirred up with Splash Mountain, it still hasn't abated. With Latondra Newton gone, walking out of the company, we haven't heard much from Reimagine Tomorrow. Is this maybe a chapter concluded, at least for now?
And also, OG, what I had also mentioned too is that telling to the fact of that someone was removed that had something to do with the reimagining of Splash Mountain before this attraction even opens. So is that Disney's way of saying that they really lost full confidence in the public eye of how they are going to respond to this when it does open?
Yes, that's a great point, George. And I'm going to be consistent here. When all those Universal creative executives jumped ship for the retirement packages like a few months ago, and I said that doesn't bode well for Epic Universe, them leaving early before that park is open. Same goes for this. The fact that she's leaving before this thing is open. You're absolutely right, George. It doesn't exude a whole lot of confidence from C-suite that this thing is going to be a home run. So yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic point. I never considered that, George.
Yeah, because I mean, it's to the fact that, and as Dre had mentioned, there was like how many attractions that were in that pipeline that would have been changed. Peter Pan's Flight, Tiki Room, Carousel of Progress, possibly Pinocchio's Daring Journey. There's certain things there. It's like how much that we would probably not even recognize as the of how we see the attractions today. Yeah,
and people, I don't know. I mean, it's funny because it's like, how many people really knew the backstory for Splash Mountain? How many people knew what movie it was even based on? Like, we do, obviously, because we're like neck deep in like this Disney universe, this bubble. Most people don't know. The normies have no idea, and they spent all this money to retheme it. They're not, and like Dre's mentioned many times, they're not getting anything out of it. They're not expanding capacity. It's the same ride. I mean, maybe they'll sell more Tiana merch, but you can for a lot cheaper, just make a new Tiana store for that.
Apparently, I guess a lot of people aren't a fan of Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. There's also another interesting discussion related to the parks here. Latondra Newton, from what I understand, was one of the big champions of we'll hold off on that story in a moment there, OG.
Absolutely.
But she was also a big champion of the kind of language policing that's been going on lately with Disney parks, specifically the
ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
We all remember what happened there. But also too, like not being able to refer to little girls and boys as princesses and princes. The whole maybe Disney look, from what I understand, she kind of had her fingers in all those pots right there. Do we see some of those rolled back because she's gone? Any predictions, fellas?
I think you might. I think you might see, at the very least, maybe more a strict enforcement of the actual rules, right? Because like what we've seen, Disney has, when it comes to like tattoos, for example, right? And I'm not anti-tattoo, actually. I think some of them are pretty sexy. Like when girls have like a whole sleeve like that, I'm digging that.
See. Now, let's reiterate OG's statement here. He did not say, "Oh, it's cool, it's fascinating, it's sexy," ladies and gentlemen.
It's sexy. It can be very sexy. But here's the thing: Disney, their rule for cast members is it can't be bigger than your hand, I believe, right?
Right.
And I've seen tattoos way I'm not saying it looks bad. Like I said before, it can be very cool. It looks great on some people, but Disney isn't really enforcing this. I think they're scared to. I think what you might see, Dre, is I think you might see Disney start to actually just enforce the rules they currently have, right? So maybe not roll back the tattoo thing altogether, but maybe just, hey, it actually has to be smaller than your hand.
Facial hair has to be well.
I was just going to say too, because I don't mind someone having, obviously, I mean, you could see me, I'm Italiano, so that I don't mind, seeing, a well-groomed trim beard or a mustache, that's fine. But I mean, like when you have something that's like, makes you look like one of the members of ZZ Top, I mean, like that's something that I feel like, it's like, kind of pick and choose your battles here.
Yeah.
So
no, I understand.
Me personally, like, I like, this is weird to say, but the cast members should not stand out, but they should be noticeable, if that makes sense. Right. Like, I want to find a cast member when I look, and if I'm looking for a cast member, I don't want the cast member to be like, oh, my eyesight. I'm like, oh, why is that cast member here? Bringing up that topic, too, of seeing cast members, kind of weird. I see cast members walk across different lands when I was at Disney World, from different areas, and it kind of threw me off a little bit. Yeah, a little. That's strange.
That's weird because they have the underground utilidors for that. I thought that they would.
That's very weird. Yeah.
Interesting.
That is interesting. I wonder what's causing that. Look, there has been this kind of lackadaisical mindset when it comes to the Disney look and some of these other policies because they have been loosened. And frankly, I think cast members know that Disney's desperate, so it's like, they're not going to fire me.
What are you going to do?
I think we can start clamping down on this kind of stuff. I don't know about you fellas. Within reason, of course. But on a little bit of happier news. Now, OG, you can go ahead and share my screen right there.
There we go.
Disney shared new photos of Imagineers testing Journey of Water, inspired by Moana. I'll never not refer to this attraction by that name. Disney says, quote, Imagineers have begun to teach water how to play as they, quote, test and prepare our new attraction to welcome guests later this fall to World Nature and Epcot at Walt Disney World. You kind of see some of those there.
Am I the only person that cringes when Imagineering and Disney use the word play? I'm just like, this isn't Chuck E. Cheese. Can we not use play? I don't know. It just come on.
I agree.
It's cringy. Like, this edition is fine. It's not.
See, now here's the thing. I was on the monorail, and I didn't realize how much of it was completed because I would have actually taken some video footage and photos. But of what I've seen, like looking out at the monorail, it actually looks very. It's very original. I like the aesthetics of it. My only problem is it doesn't fit. I get they're trying to do the kinetic energy and everything, but it doesn't fit well in Epcot. Of what I've seen passing through the monorail, it would have looked perfect as part of the Moana land. That if it was to take over Chester and Hester's Dino-Rama, that's where it would fit.
Sure. Well, or if they had like a Polynesian pavilion at the World Showcase or something kind of cool like that, but
that might be cool.
That would be kind of cool, right? But this is replacing, from what I understand, a section of Future World?
It's literally going to be like right in the center of like where Future World is, and to me, you're going to have this tying into with space, and you're going to have it tied to it. Just like
it's a weird mix.
Future World is like non-existent at this moment, and it's like it's not coming back, obviously. But I just think it's at least World Showcase has that kinetic energy, like where it transitions nicely to each country. I don't know exactly how this is going to.
So the neighbor.
I hope.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Jay. You sure?
No, go ahead.
Good.
Yeah, please.
I hope we can actually be able to get to the other side. I don't know about you, but having to walk all the way around just to get on the other side was horrible. And I went one way and I got lost, so I had to go back all the way around. And there's no shade, so I'm happy to see trees in this picture.
There are rumors that the entrance pavilion, at least some of it, will have been opened by summer, from what I understand. Rumors.
They're trying to push it, yeah.
Because I've heard from operations managers who are like, we need our park open. Okay, this is ridiculous.
Well, and that's the other thing that's like very, very frustrating is like with the construction timing. Like I could somewhat understand Tron. I can understand because of the time frame of what went on with the world. It lasted 6 years. Okay, I get it. This should not take as long as what it's doing. This should have already been done.
It should have already been done for sure. I mean, these were, we weren't setting up a new attraction. To your point there, George. This was an entrance for this park right here. It's unfortunate that it is taking this long. One of the big complaints from Epcot was, lack of shade, right? More trees. Fulfilling that request. I think this kind of thing was, for the kids, right? To give them a place to play. I know OG hates that, but I think that's part of it. And I think some of these decisions were done by Imagineers who grew up with like the what do you want to call it? The Imagination Pavilion, that kind of water kind of thing that was out there. It was like, ooh, what if
like
we had
leaping fountains and all that?
And speaking of that, it was great. They had butterflies. They had a whole butterfly room. So the kids went in there and just hung out with the butterflies, and it was pushed out like in a perfect location. I just think more stuff like that would be great.
And that is true. And honestly, that is true. And unfortunately, they only have it during the Flower and Garden Festival. I wish that they would kind of create like a permanent setting for that, especially if they're going to have this kind of outdoor organic type of thing. But again, I guess that they have to because they try to draw people back into those kind of festivities. Because if they have it year round, it's not going to get people to go to Flower and Garden.
Butterflies also have like natural cycles they go through, and maybe it just simply is not feasible.
We have a park out here, Marine World, or formerly known as Marine World, the Discovered Kingdom out in Vallejo. They have a permanent butterfly habitat, and it's been there for years, and it's fantastic.
Nice.
Hey, there you go. I think that would be a great thing to implement.
So
even if you want to do it,
you said butterflies have cycles. So I guess they're all female.
Yes, folks, we only have high-class stuff on this show.
There you go.
Funny.
There you go, right there. Yes.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We have one last story to get through real fast.
Let's do it.
What is it right here? Yep. Our good friend of the channel right there, Ethan, as we know him as Theme Park Wizard, wrote up a story for the Boardwalk Times right here, walking through Universal Studios Hollywood. A couple of things. One, they've deleted some of their previous attractions, mainly the Animal Stunt Show, and they're working on, I believe, the effects stage right next to it. But also, mobile order has arrived at Universal Studios Hollywood, so it looks like they want to get those per caps up themselves as well. Sorry, annual pass holders, if you don't like mobile order, well, it's coming to a park near you, whether you're at Disney or at Universal. So I thought that was kind of interesting to highlight his stuff right there, and end on a high note that progress is happening no matter where you look, whether it be Disney or Universal.
I have to say, though, my last couple trips at any of the Disney parks, with the as far as the mobile ordering goes. And I know it kind of sort of takes away a cast member's job, to ring you up at the register and what have you. But as far as the transition goes, like from step 1 to step 2, it's actually very smooth. It hasn't actually failed me at the times when I do use mobile order, and it definitely saves me a lot of time than just waiting to get my order placed, because they usually have a 2-sided area with the register, so the cast member goes back and forth from one side to the next. But with mobile order, I just kind of stand back and takes like 5-10 minutes, and then I just grab my order.
Hey, I've always liked mobile order. I've very rarely do I ever have like an issue with it. I take that back. I mean, in the early rollout, I did. The windows were horrible. Like
especially Hungry Bear. Like I used it for Hungry Bear. That was a nightmare. Yeah,
but lately, like for a while now, it's been really good. Like I can put my order in, and within 15-20 minutes, it's ready to go. I'm out the door. I like mobile order. I really do, and I'm glad that Universal's finally on board with it too. I got a Universal AP. I talk a lot of shit about Universal, but I do have a good time there. I've actually already been there. Like I think it was like 4 times now this year since February. Ooh. So I don't know. I'm kind of becoming maybe a Universal shill. Maybe I should turn in my Pixie Duster card. There we go.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go, right?
There we go.
Yeah, mobile order does help some people. The only thing I don't like about it is the ratios between mobile order and standby. Those have always been a source of contention for me. When you see like 3 mobile order windows and then 1 standby window, it's like, come on, can we balance this out here a little bit? But overall, I think it's like, hey, if it does save you time, if it is convenient, if it's done well, no issues there. We'll have to see about Universal's implementation, but that about rounds out every single thing that's going on in the parks now. There you go.
All right. Well, we'll close it out. Candid Camper, always a pleasure having you on, brother. We'll have you on again soon to talk shop with us. We'll start with you, sir. If you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, my friend.
Yep, you can follow me down there, the Candid Camper, and that's on Twitter and on YouTube. Feel free to drop a message, and we can have some fun, wonderful conversations.
There we go. There we go. Follow this gentleman and subscribe to him on YouTube. Right over here, I got Dr. Dre. VashSky, host of the Freshly Squeezed show here on the channel. Vash, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
The best place to find me is going to be at VashSky on Twitter. Just type it up and it should pop up for all of that robust discussion right there. And if you guys want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now at OrangeGo55. We have some amazing shows, but it includes my own Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
Here we go. And kitty corner diagonal to me is Mr. Citrus George, the fellow Italian George. If you let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You could find me on Twitter at Disney George. You could also check me out as part of the podcast called A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And if you want to actually meet me in person, I'm always hanging around Walt Disney World, primarily at the pizzeria at the boardwalk. It's become one of my favorite hangout spots. So
absolutely,
if you want to see me, check me out there.
Yep.
Very much.
There we go. Now, Candid, I hope you like Carl's Jr. because we have this is our drop. And George, this is your favorite drop. We're going to close out on a high note. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Comment down below with all your thoughts and everything we discussed. And until next time, have a great day. Bye-bye now.